As a Goan, one feels ashamed today to have woken up to this news of the tragedy in Arpora that has claimed at least 25 lives as of now. And it's a tragedy that could have been avoided if only the authorities had done the job that they were supposed to do, that they were paid to do, that they were elected to do. Okay, there's a demolition order for this structure dating back to April 2024. It's almost 2 years that the structure has stood there, and it was known to them that it was illegal, but it was still not demolished. When the demolition order was issued, the owner went to the Directorate of Panchayat, and the Directorate of Panchayat put a stay order on this demolition. Who benefited from this stay order? This tragedy is not an accident. It's a feature of the system that has come to define Goan tourism and how things operate in this government. Okay, when things become irregularized, it gives a rise to an informal economy around it, where there are individuals who stand to benefit. Grease the hands of the right people, you can continue operating a structure flouting all sorts of norms. That building was constructed in a salt pan, which is an eco-sensitive zone. That zone, how did the zone change happens? We don't know. Okay, it had a basement with no exit, and in a building which is already erected in a marshy wetland area, you have a basement. The setting was perfect for this tragedy to happen. I don't think this is an accident. This is how some of these things are meant to be. I'm sorry to say. And now the CM has come out and said the owner will be arrested. But we all know for a fact that it's not just the owner who's responsible for this. There's an entire gamut of people who have allowed this club to operate. And I'm sure this is not the only one. There are many such clubs that operate flouting all kinds of norms and play with our lives. We elect a government trusting them to take care of our lives, where we assume that things are in place because there's a government in place that is supposed to be governing. This party is known for fighting elections. It's called an election machine, and everybody praises the party the way it fights election. But one must wonder, once it wins the election and sits in the government, does it govern with the same spirit? These 25 people who've died will join a long list of people who have died for last few years because nobody was held accountable when the government failed and caused deaths of people. In Goa, we had a stampede at Shirgaon. It was very unfortunate incident, and at least the government then should have gotten its act together, should have conducted public audit of safety of public places, because at least leading up to December, which is a very important month for the state, not only because it receives the highest number of tourists during that month, but also a lot of locals. They have their feasts, they have their zatras, there's Christmas around. So people sort of go around and visit places. It's the year end. But we are too busy fighting elections, poaching MLAs and poaching other people, these casual things like people's safety, their lives, sometimes can be ignored. And now the PM has also announced that families of the victim will receive 2 lakh rupees as ex gratia amount. But I was also thinking that shouldn't the owner's property be attached, and the money to compensate these families should not also come from the profit he's made of these people. These are people mostly who died were people who are working in the kitchen. They are working class migrants who have also come to this state for their livelihood. Some of us, when we write about this whole culture of luxury and party in Goa. We are branded as, on the least side, we are branded as xenophobic. On the worst side, we are called as anti-national and urban naxals and communist. And despite all that, we still continue to raise our voices. There's a whole lot of activists who are constantly raising their voices. But when they do, you know what the Goans ask them? Who's funding you? Right? Nobody's funding me. But you never ask the MLAs or the ministers of when these irregularities come in, ki who's funding you? Who's funding these guys? Who's funding these political parties? Who's funding this minister? Who's funding these senior government officials who get extensions over extensions in departments and holding plum portfolios? Who's funding them? It is a tragedy for sure, and a one that could have been avoided. Today we are a drugged society because we have forgotten how to seek accountability from the leaders that we elect to power. Okay, and when you have a prime minister who will not do a press conference, that will trickle down into all kinds of political culture. Well, accountability will be thrown out of the window and nobody is responsible for anything. Now the CM will save his face, arrest few people, and given the kind of people who are owning these spaces, this perch is almost like a franchisee across the country. So I'm sure they have deep pockets. So it's not like for a long, even if they get arrested, they won't be in the prison for a very long time. The justice here operates almost exclusively against people who need it the most. And I'm sure that it will operate in the same way. The people who have died will join a long list of people for whose death nobody will be held responsible, accountable, and these things will continue. And probably in another week or so, we'll have a news cycle that will drown out all the voices that have, sort of spoken out against what happened in Alpara today. I hope this doesn't happen again, but we can only hope.